Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is another approach. We're going to do a published mist on this one so we can see how we fly a hold and such with the autopilot. This one has a good published mist. If you've never seen it before, we have a heading we have to fly to, then we have to find a radial, which brings us into a direct entry for a hold. I'll throw the plate up. This is the ILS 6 in Manchester. We're right outside Jazz now, so we're at 3,100 feet. You can see on our autopilot we have heading mode, altitude bugged, and 3,100. So 3,100, we're holding that. I'm going to go ahead and preemptively bring this down to our next altitude, which is 2,100. So float that in, doesn't do anything, that's good. And we're following our needles now, so we want to go ahead and switch over to nav mode. We can, unlike on the GPS, we can go ahead and also switch to approach mode now if we wanted. That's because we're following this guy here. We can see we're in VLOC nav, and we have 109.95, which is the ILS into this airport. We'll go ahead and come back. We see our glide slope. We're not going to take that yet. We're going to actually go ahead and drop down and beat it down. So we're going to go ahead and switch this to about 700 feet a minute down. Now, the only reason I'm doing this and not following this is I'm going to go ahead and intercept it at FTSE, which is the final approach fix. Now, I could arm the approach mode now. The altitude is hidden, remember, but it would be armed right here. And if I were to go ahead, and we'll increase this a bit, hit the approach mode now, show you. It's armed it. It's following the localizer still, but the glide slope is armed. And again, that would be right under the approach, just like last time. So we can move our heading bug. It's not going to follow the heading bug. So this should be familiar from the last video. Our glide slope's getting away from us a little bit, and that's okay. That's what I wanted to see in this case. Set it up more normally. Now the mist on this is a little weird. We're going to fly the runway heading to the radial of a VOR. Now on the mist, we could also use our GPS, and we have that set up here. We also have the VOR down here. So we'll throw that in here. We'll set the radial and 5-4 in. So that's ready to go. 2,100, you can see it's armed it. It's switched from vertical speed mode to altitude. So we'll go ahead and give it a little bit of power again. Our glide slope's also coming in, so we'll go ahead and clean this up. And we're going to aim for our 90 knots as usual. We're waiting for the glide slope to capture, which should happen right around FTSE, and it's going to follow the glide slope down. A little slow, we can give it a little bit of power. We can see it's armed the glide slope. We've captured it, centered up. And now it's going to follow that glide slope down to our minimums of 474. At 474, we are going to go mist. So we can see what a mist looks like. Okay, as we come up to our minimums, we're waiting for 477. We want to be ready to disengage the autopilot. So we'll look up, we don't see the runway. So we come down, we turn this off. We go ahead and start our climb out. Now the thing that we want to do is we'd also like to do the mist. See, here's this. We're going to watch and wait for the suspend, and we'll flip that there. We want a heading of 057, which is what we're flying now. We'll go ahead and throw this back on. We'll put it on heading mode. We want the VSI, vertical speed, 800. There we go. And the vertical speed will be different for everybody. But now we're holding this, and we're going up to our minimum, or our 3,000, just like the plate says. So that will be armed now down there. We don't care where this needle is anymore because we're following a heading. We're going to go ahead and hit suspend. We can see it's going to update, and it's going to tell us to go intercept this radial. We can see that radial painted on our GPS there. I also have the Concord VOR loaded up here, so we can go ahead and switch this over. We'll spin this to 154. Now, none of this matters right now, because we're following a heading until we get to this radial. Potentially. That right there is a good reason vertical speed isn't a good mode to use when we're trying to climb. The plane is going to continuously pitch until it reaches its desired vertical speed, until it stalls, or where it hits the vertical speed. Now, the reason we can't use nav on our GPS is we can clearly see we don't have a needle there, and even if I were to flip this back, I wouldn't be following this either. Nothing's going to show up or register. So that's why we need to follow a heading. We could also switch to the GPS, because we are monitoring the VOR as well. So if we go ahead and click this, or this button here, depends on your airplane. Now, the altitude is armed, so when we hit 3,000, it will level off. Switched from vertical speed to altitude all on its own. Now down here we have the Concord VOR. We also have the GPS on this top one, so we can see the differences. Sometimes it will be slightly different. The GPS may be more accurate than the VOR, especially at range. What we're waiting for is for our GPS to tell us when to turn, in this case. We could also identify that when our needle starts to come in. And that's when we're going to, hey, okay, we should probably turn to our desired heading and follow that radial outbound. You can see our VOR needles come alive. And our GPS is also alive. So what we can do is we can go ahead and drag this to our desired heading of 154. Now this would be standard rate. This may overbank. And we're going to go ahead and arm the navigation mode, which it has automatically picked up. It's happy, and it's going to do the corrections for us here. So with the nav armed, as that needle comes in, it's going to capture and fly it outbound. We're doing a direct entry here, and on the inbound leg, we're going to want to follow the inbound course, which would be our needle. You can see here too, the GPS says we're centered up, and our VOR is slightly off, so that's a good difference to note. Doesn't make too big of a difference, but we have to choose one. Now, the reason we don't want to be using heading mode in this case when we're heading to KHRIS is in heading mode, it's not going to correct for the wind. And when we're inbound, we want to be able to fly the inbound course. We don't want to be on the wrong side of the hold. Now, the autopilot is only as good as we make it. So how would we fly this hold if we were manually flying it? Is we would have to we would turn to the reciprocal heading. of 334. So that's what we're going to need to do. The GPS doesn't know where that is, or the autopilot doesn't know where it is, because the GPS is just using these needles. We have one line drawn here from KHRIS straight out. So if we don't turn it to heading mode, it's not going to know where it is. When we get our to from flip, which would be up here, might not work in this case, but we get a to from flip on the GPS, we can start our turn. To do so, we're going to hit heading mode and then spin the heading bug to the right. Now, a common thing that's going to happen, and why we want to spin the heading bug in the direction that we're turning, is we can cause the autopilot to turn the wrong way because it thinks it's smarter than us. Now, some GPS units, and this again is not standard rate, and that's what we'd be flying. Some GPS units will, if it's more integrated with the autopilot system, will tell, hey, follow this nav course, and it will help adjust for that. But in this case, we're pretending it's quite dumb, and it can only do the most basic of tasks. So then we're going to fly this outbound for a minute. And we don't care where this needle is. So on some planes, we wouldn't have this whole hold drawn out. It would look more like if it's on OBS mode. All it knows is this one radial. So in some cases, this needle would be all the way here. You can see on the VOR down here how that would be true too. So the VOR doesn't know where we are either. If we were using VOR data to feed our autopilot, it would have continued on that heading on that radial. As we approach a minute, we can go and spin this guy to our desired 154 again. Again, this would be standard rate, so it'd be a little longer than this. What we're also going to do is we're going to come down here and we're going to hit nav arm again. So that way it's going to intercept our inbound course. So even if we were to overshoot or undershoot it, we would still end up on our inbound leg where we can start our timer. See here, it's auto-correcting to get back on course, and then it will fly direct to KHRIS. And as a demonstration, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and switch back from the GPS to the nav mode. So we're on nav. You can see it's deleted that because it doesn't know exactly what we want. So we're going to tell it nav mode again, and it's going to fly this nav source outbound. Now, how do we tell where KHRIS is if we didn't have a GPS? We would have to use our distance over here. So we want 21.3 DME in our box over here. Now, this seems to be a bit confused. So it's telling us to turn. Now, because it's on the VOR, it doesn't know that we need to turn. We're 21.3. You see how it's not turning? So we have to go ahead and hit heading again and turn. 334. And it should be standard. The nice thing about using an autopilot in a hold is it relieves a lot of our work, and we can go ahead and brief the next play to what we're going to do without worrying about our altitude and our heading as much. The autopilot is only as good as the information that you give it. If it's programmed wrong, it will give out bad data and bad flying. So again, we'd start our timer. That would have been going on the inbound as well. Again, you can see the needle is slightly off, so we wouldn't want to be flying that. We can also see our timer's almost up, so we're going to go ahead and start our turn. We start our turn at our minute. We'll see our needle, and again, this would still have a from flag. It is shown down here. Standard rate as well. As we come through, we can adjust our heading bug slightly and go ahead and hit nav mode. Just going to fly the course just like we had it. We can start our timer, and that's what we had to hold to do the hold with a VOR as well.